this presentation is going to be in English. I'm just going to start. It's a hard act to follow. I mean, all of the managers over there. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Ivan Saaба, and as mentioned, I'm a broadcaster here at the IDC International Radio. For the past 6 years, I've been following the Arabic music indie scene here. And I can tell you a lot has changed in the last 6 years. It's going to continue to change, especially now because Spotify and Deezer and so many other streaming services are coming in to the Middle East. Okay, so if we should start, 1 second, there we go. So if we take a closer look at the Middle East and North Africa, also known as MENA, we can see that in the IFPI, global report, every year they have one, they release one annually. And in last April's report, they failed to mention a whole region, the Middle East and North Africa. This is solely because of, well, historically speaking, nobody really pays attention to the Middle East and North Africa because of their consumption, because of their media consumption, and mainly because of music. So if we look at how people are listening to music in the Middle East, they're using free or ad-free platforms like Anghami and YouTube. Anghami, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a kind of like the Spotify of the Arab world. Let's just call it that. And just to get a better idea, let's hear what people are actually listening to. Sorry to cut it short, but just so we get an idea, there's a lot of genres, there are a lot of things that people are listening to, and the examples I've shown are very local. But one of the biggest issues right now in the Middle East, and the thing that they're combating the most, is piracy. It seems like a thing of the past, but it's still very, very relevant in the Middle East and North Africa. The Middle East and North Africa entertainment industry said that it loses about $500 million annually in unpaid royalties. This is because there are no performance organizations, performance rights organizations that are really monitoring and making sure that people are getting paid for their music and the content that they create. Just a little bit of a reminder, back in 2011, iTunes almost didn't enter the Middle East and North Africa market because of this reason, because they had no way of really giving the artists their rights, of course. And just to get a closer look, in the Persian Gulf, they lost over $5.4 million in unpaid royalties annually, which is a lot of money, obviously, to lose if you're not making. And of course, the music industry in the Middle East is a little bit underwhelming. If we take a look a little bit more at a closer look in comparison to the rest of the world, we can see that performance right organizations in the Middle East they don't exist. 81% of the countries don't have any organization that monitors royalties in the Middle East. And if we look at North America, for example, there's no such thing as no performance organizations. So let's say if you were an artist and you had a hit and it was played all over the radio stations in the Middle East, it would not impact your revenue at all. You wouldn't see a cent of it, even if you did sell CDs or any physical copies or even illegal copies. There would be no way to monitor it, and people wouldn't get their money back. So what has changed? Obviously, we have a Saudi prince who is investing in Spotify and, well, not Spotify, but Deezer, more correctly, giving $185 million in funding to expand Deezer's expansion in the Middle East, obviously. And other things such as labels are now coming into the Middle East. Warner Music Middle East they just announced that they had a subsidiary a little over a year ago, and they have signed about a few artists, both also from here, from Israel, of course, and all over the Middle East and North Africa. They're in charge of 17 markets in the region, and they're based in Lebanon. And this is just only the beginning. There are a lot of other events that are happening here in our region, a little bit more towards Ramallah, but nonetheless, it's still happening. The Palestine Music Expo is an event that happens every April for 3 days straight, where music executives, journalists, artists, and many people from the industry come to Ramallah for 3 days for a conference where they give artists tools and just help them understand the music scene and how they can actually make money from their music. They reported that nearly 50% of a 50% hit rate of local bands getting signed to international labels, which is a huge deal. Let's have a look at last year's event. Cutting the party a little short here. We want to meet obviously the main players in the Middle East and North Africa, and of course we all know YouTube. And Rami is also one of the oldest players in the game, as well as Apple Music. But now Deezer and Spotify have come into the mix, and with their arrival, it brings to a population of 444 million people the ability to stream legal music. This is a huge deal in the Middle East, never before happened. And it comes with a lot of challenges, of course, but it's a very interesting development, especially for the music scene. If we look at YouTube, for example, YouTube has always dominated. We've heard it earlier in the conference as well. It's always dominated in terms of streaming. But in Saudi Arabia, it probably has one of the largest viewerships in any country of the world. 90 million views per day, and that's because Facebook and Twitter are heavily regulated by the government, so a lot of people get their content from YouTube. So part of their strategy is really to invest in local bands, such as Apple Music has, of course. Apple has always been a part of the Middle East by proxy of Apple products. And we have, of course, Apple balcony music sessions that are coming to Dubai that have already been happening, which are very similar to Echo 99's Fish Tank or Jam 88. Just sessions bringing in local bands to perform and giving backing and really showing that these are the kind of artists we want to back and invest in and create a more diverse music scene. If we look at Rami, of course, Rami is one of the leading platforms in the Middle East and North Africa. It's been around for 6 years. It's a Lebanese company. They don't see themselves as just a music streaming service, but they do also see themselves as a social media. So a lot of times they have stories. They have very similar to Insta and Snapchat. And basically it becomes a platform where people can listen to music, share their interests, and really create like a social hub. And a lot of other content that they like to create is, of course, Rami Originals. They like to create content for themselves as well. So we have a lot of their music is not only traditional. You may think it's just traditional, but I assure you there are other genres and other things thriving as well. Just like the Rami Cipher, where they took 9 rappers from all over the Arab world, put them on one beat, produced by Rami. Loading. Second.
ونحن فخورين انه نقدم لكم انغامي سايفر. اسمع.
يا لأنه زل من عقاب يدير فينا اسكت على تل من تراب يصير طين فاسمع هذا زمن تعب البال ثمن الحقيقة القيل والقال اللي بيع الكلام ثمن عال.
It's a very long video, we don't have that much time to see it, but this is another example of Anghami's content. This is the evolution of Arabic music through the years done by Ala Wardi, who is a YouTuber and musician, and he's really covered it all. I really encourage you to go and check them out. I've only have a little bit of time, and we want to get to Spotify, of course, who have just entered the market and are really making a huge change. I think that their playlists are much better than that of Anghami's, solely because they really concentrate on creating very different flavor of dialects, colors, sounds. I mean, so many different things that are really become part of their Arab hub. They want to create an Arab hub of localized bands, and we can see that very much in their playlist. A lot of the leading artists in these playlists are local artists from the region, from here, the Israeli Arabs or Palestinians, whoever you want to call them. They're the ones leading the playlist, and we can have a look at one of those playlists right now and just see the diversity of it. And if it's playing, that would be better. There we go.
We saw it.
So just a quick flip through one of their playlists. A lot of diversity and variety in them as well. I'll get to that. Okay, so you're more than welcome now that Spotify is in the Middle East as well. You can also check out these playlists. They're global, and I really do encourage everyone to check them out. Let's see, let's move on, please. There we go. Okay, so the challenges that a lot of these platforms are facing, obviously, is to make money. You asked if they were free. The majority are a freemium, meaning they're free, but there will be ads played to the majority of them. And Anghami has already been taking over this, they're really monopolizing on this this market, and they are the cheapest option other than the rest of their competitors. But they all face one issue. In the Middle East, the credit card penetration is very low. If we look at it, 52% of males and 35% of females have access to bank accounts. They don't have a lot of credit cards. So this results in about 85% of users don't pay for streaming, which is very problematic if you're looking to make money in streaming services and invest in the Middle East. But Spotify have announced that they're not really looking into making a lot of money, at least on the beginning. They really want to give back to the music scene and teach artists to monetize and to learn how to make money from their music, essentially building a scene around it so that later on they will have an audience in the long run. It's a really interesting investment into the music scene, and it's really showing a lot of change, especially here. And you're probably asking yourselves, okay, what does this have to do with Israel? Well, before, if you asked me 6 years ago if there was a music industry, not just here, but in the Arab world, I would have said no. You could have had a hit, nobody would have heard of it. But now, Spotify, Deezer, and all these streaming services have given artists a way to get money, to earn a living, and people see if an artist has 10 million hits on Spotify or Deezer or something, they will get signed, essentially. People will start investing in them. They will see that there's a market. A lot of these artists that I've mentioned and I'm showing here, they're all local, from Haifa, Majd al-Shams, Nazareth, Jaffa, wherever you want on the map, Ramallah even. They have all gone on European tours, American tours, even to the Far East and Tokyo. I mean, they've really made it everywhere but here. It's unrealistic that this is the situation. And I think that what I want to leave you all with is go into Spotify or whatever you're using, check out the playlist, and really listen to this music, because it's right here and we're missing it completely. Thank you.